Hi, it's Matt and Alona here. The last couple of weeks have been really challenging for many of us, with emotions running quite high. And we recorded this episode the day after the election. And in this conversation, we explore ways to process what you might be feeling, whether it's hope, frustration, or anything in between, and hopefully channel it into something meaningful. We hope it offers you some support and perspective during this time.
Welcome to webe Pärents, where parent doctors Matthew Lederman and Alona Pulde explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
So, how's it going?
It is going well. It is going well. I think this is an important topic for me that we're talking about today, and it was an eye opener in our own family. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. How about you?
Yes, I am. The polarized nation. I've heard people
Yes.
talking about that so much now.
Yes.
We are so polarized. What's going on in this country? It seems like people have a lot of concern, but
Yeah.
the question I started asking was, are we part of the problem or part of the solution? So we thought it would be great to talk about this. I'm glad you are too.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to dive into headlines and heartlines. And today, our topic is about the polarization that is gripping our nation, especially in light of the recent election. And we're going to humbly talk about how it starts right here in our own home. And that came to light very clearly this week after the election. One of our daughters came down and she was railing on one of the candidates. And when we asked her more information on, what does that mean to you, or how do you know that, or where did you hear that, or how'd you come upon that? She had no idea. It was something that she overheard and then just repeated blindly.
Well, I don't even know if she overheard it. She just somehow picked up that she's supposed to hate this person. And it could have been overhearing. It could just, that's to me is the big question.
I know they're talking about it. I asked them, and, they, both girls, the day before the election came home sharing, there's so much anxiety about who's going to win and what if so-and-so wins, and that could just be devastating or terrible. And then after the election, coming home and sharing how, so many of the kids were upset and crying and commenting pretty aggressively. And it's not that the actual opinion is something that I take issue with, because we all are totally welcome to our own opinions, right? And that's important for us to have them. But what bothered me, especially with our girls, was that it was coming without any context other than, this is what I heard from somebody else, and so this is what I'm taking on.
Right. Somehow she absorbed the hate and was spreading it. And the concern is that that's happening. So I've heard of groupthink, but now there's this group hate where I don't have to talk about something that person specifically did or said or some policy of theirs that I'm concerned about. It's just hate the person. That, and I hear it from, family members, that person is a lunatic, you know, and to me, regardless of your political position or wherever you stand, if we're just hating that this other side, if we're hating that person, if we're calling them names, in nonviolent communication, we talk about enemy images. If we have enemy images of the other person, we are part of the problem instead of part of the solution. If our concern is the polarization and how do we come back together as a country, as a community.
Right. And I think for me, and that was a conversation that I actually had with our daughter, was I welcome your opinion and I love to hear what you think. but I want that connected to your internal values. I want that to come from, hey, I don't agree with this, but, but not, I hate this person, right? And then you don't even know why you hate the person.
Right.
And the danger in that is that we are creating, just like you said, this culture of right and wrong, this culture of hate and disregard, and we don't even know why.
Or maybe not, and we are part, if we are watching somebody's opinion, whether it's on the news or a podcast or a journal article or a blog, we are getting a metabolized view of somebody. And if they have an agenda or they have some position that they want to spread, it behooves them not to give you the full context, but to just point out, what they don't like, catching somebody in their worst moment. If somebody followed me around and only showed the worst things I said and the worst things I did to try and make me look bad, I could look pretty terrible. So to me, it's one of the ways we stop this hate is that we don't allow that to be the way we get our information. If you talk to somebody for 3 hours unedited and you get a sense of this person, they're going to say things you like, they're going to say things you don't like. They're going to have policies that you agree with and policies that you don't agree with. And to catch somebody in their worst moment is going to spread that hate.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And the thing is, even when you're capturing a moment in the media, it's for us to formulate again. I don't like that I heard someone say X, Y, and Z, which is very different from I hate that person. There could be a lot of concerns, but let's talk. Like, it doesn't help me to hear he's a lunatic or she's a lunatic. He's evil or she's unintelligent. Whatever that is, right? When we're labeling in a way that stimulates those enemy images, in the way that stimulates hate, and we don't connect to what is underneath that. What are the actual concerns? What are the worries or the needs not met, right?
And the reason to do that is not because it's the right thing to do. If we are focused on trying to decrease the hate and the polarization, that's the whole focus of today's show. It's not that you can't vent. It's not that you can't have enemy images. It's not that you can't watch your preferred news station echo chamber that's saying all the things you agree with and hating all the people you hate. But how is that going to heal the polarization? And now when I saw it, it's bad enough when it's the world around me, but when I saw it in my children so blatantly, that's when it really hit me that this is important. That the next 4 years, regardless of what Alona or I think of Donald Trump or any other person that is now in office, can we push ourselves to connect to their feelings and their needs, and even our feelings and needs, when we don't like something they've said, when we don't like something they've done? Can we do that? What comes up for you, Alona, when I propose that? Because my guess is Donald Trump is going to do things that we don't like. He's going to say things that we don't like. But to be honest, everybody else in my life at some point over the next 4 years is going to say something I don't like and do something I don't like.
Right. And the question is, how do you address that? How do we address it as individual people? How do we wish that we could address it as a nation? Right. And for me, the answer is never just to label and judge and hate another person. That doesn't even get me to what I actually want, which is the reason that I'm having these unpleasant feelings is because I have needs that are going unmet. Let's say you don't meet my need, Matt, for kindness and care one day. And my response is, I hate Matt. Matt's a lunatic. Okay, how did I even get my needs met? None of my needs, all my needs are still going unmet.
Right.
And instead now, I can't even get to a place where I can discuss, if that's all I think of you, I can't even bring myself to have a discussion, a compassionate, caring discussion around meeting my needs.
Right, because when we talk and think in terms of hate and those judgments, we're in the most pain and we're the least likely to get our needs met. So it's a real pivotal moment if you can start to transform that, or someone else can approach you with empathy. So even if somebody says something that you find offensive or doesn't meet your need for respect or care or kindness or equality or fairness, if you can be the person that connects to the feelings and needs, you are spreading love and connection instead of hate into the world. You are stopping the hate. That is power to me.
Absolutely. And you can still express likes and dislikes.
Exactly.
But I dislike that, you spoke to me in a volume that stimulated fear. I dislike that my children's socks are all over the house. But that doesn't translate into, I hate my children.
Right. And that's where getting back to the basics of nonviolent communication is so helpful. What did you observe? I observed, a volume higher than I enjoyed, higher than I was comfortable with. And I felt, how did I feel? I felt fear. I felt scared. What needs were coming up? Emotional safety, maybe even physical safety. I was worried. What request do I want to make? Hey, Matt, would you be willing to talk at a lower volume? Right? So if we can start to force ourselves down that path, because at first it's hard, right? Because people, right, including myself, we were conditioned to think in terms of what's wrong with the other person. What are they doing? What don't I like? How do I make it stop? That's not going to lead us towards where we really want to go.
I reflect on, that thing that you hear from parents regularly. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the behavior. And a lot of times that's not the actual feeling that you get. You get, oh no, they're quite mad at me. But that is in essence where if we could really get to that, I'm really upset by the behavior. But I'm not translating into judgment of a person is key, right?
And that leads us into the tool that's going to help us transform. Because a lot of people say, hey, this is great. Some people might say, oh, you're crazy. I just want to keep hating. That's fine. But then just acknowledge and have accountability that you're part of the problem, not the solution. But if you say, hey, I would like to take action to try and change some of this hate and spread love and connection instead, the trick is when you hate somebody or you have what we call enemy images in nonviolent communication, can you see what we call their good intentions behind what they did, even if you don't like what they did? That is very hard the more and more hate that has built up. The stronger the enemy images are, the harder it is to do that.
I think that is like a black belt step. But even if you don't see it as a good intention, what need are they trying to meet? Right? We have tragic strategies to meet needs.
Right. When I say good intention, I mean they were trying to meet a need.
Okay.
So if I yell at my kid because I thought they were not meeting a need for respect, I probably had an image of them as disrespectful. They are disrespectful kids, and I'm going to teach them by yelling at them.
Yes.
Right? And then they're going to respect me by obeying. And when I yell and make them scared enough and uncomfortable enough, they'll do what I want. So that to me is I'm using the enemy image and I'm trying to meet a need. And people might say, do you have a good intention when you yell at your kids like that? Yes, I do. I'm trying to meet my need for respect. I'm trying to meet my need for mattering. I'm trying to meet my need for predictability if I want to make sure that's the way they're going to behave in the future. So there are three really tender, beautiful needs underneath a behavior that is very easy to have judgment towards me around and to say, well, boy, when Matt yells like that, he's such a jerk. He is mean. And if I yell enough times, someone might call me a lunatic. Boy, he's a lunatic the way he parents. You're supposed to say, no, you're not. That's okay. No.
Oh, I'm resonating. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, he is a lunatic. So can we do that? That's the tool. Can we pause and try to see the need they're meeting, which I call good intentions? If you can't see it as good intentions, that's okay. That's a little bit more challenging. But again, you have such strong enemy images that you can't even be open to the fact that they have an intention that's good, right? Because you're so sure that they're bad. And that just means that it's hard, right? It's hard to do this.
It's hard to do because a lot of us need empathy.
Right.
Our needs have gone unmet.
When you see those actions.
Right. Now, well, I'll say even the election results didn't meet a lot of people's needs.
Right. So before they can do this, they need empathy for their pain.
Right.
Right.
Because they're in pain, they're afraid, they're mourning, right? And so it's very hard in that state
Correct.
to find an empathic space for somebody else.
Right. You shouldn't do that. It's actually, I would say, nearly impossible to have authentic empathy for someone else if you are really needing empathy as a result of something that person did or said. So it's going to be very hard to connect to the needs that Donald Trump is trying to meet if you still need empathy for all the pain around things that Donald Trump has done that didn't meet your needs.
Right. And self-empathy is a really beautiful tool to use in these situations. You can get empathy from another person as well. But even learning how to self-empathize, learning how to identify your own feelings and needs, and then find a space to mourn feelings and needs that are not going to be met, or finding, connecting to creative strategies to meet those needs that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And that can come in a lot of ways. Like people who are unhappy with Trump are talking about leaving the country.
Right.
It's a strategy to meet a need. But
I hear a lot of people's concern, well, some of their concerns, right, about Donald Trump is that all of they call them pro-Trumpers, right? All these Trump fans, that voted for Donald Trump. And it's, all these people that are in the rural America, right? There's all these generalizations. That is the beginning of the pathway towards enemy images, right? You dehumanize.
You create an us and them mentality.
Right. And that's the whole point of today's show, is to really connect to everything that you're doing that is either contributing to the problem or heading us towards a solution. And if we start thinking that there's such a thing, these labels of this is a Trumper, right? And this is somebody, the people in rural America where it's different than us in the city, right? All of that is like you said, the us and them. It's fuel. It's going to allow the enemy images to start on fire.
And I like to ask, what purpose is it? What is it serving? I can't see anything but a tragic outcome in that sense. And it's not that I've not polarized, and it's not that I've not judged. So I'm definitely putting myself in the same boat, right? But when I do, how has it served me? How does fueling hate serve me other than to make me angry, to possibly perpetuate violence, right? To create and perpetuate separation. Like for me, nothing good comes out of that.
It's a tragic way to meet your need for empathy when you get a bunch of people together and you all hate the same person, right? If you all are together in your hatred, there's some level of, hey, I'm not alone. We're getting to express ourselves and sort of blow off some upset, strong feelings. It's these tragic strategies, so it's understandable.
And I also think it's masking. If we can get angry, we don't have to tap into our fear and our hurt and our worry, right? Because we're in that angry land.
Right? If we can learn to be comfortable with we don't have to like it, but we don't have to make it go away, especially if we're going to make it go away through hatred and enemy images and venting toxicity. But if we can start to just notice that fear, notice that pain, be with it. And the same thing with the kids. If we can connect with our kids around, where's this hatred coming from? Tell us about it. What is that? How does that feel? And can we connect to things that either you don't like, or can we connect to things that you think your teacher didn't like about this person or that your friend didn't like? But really supporting them to connect to the needs that are not met in observations versus these evaluations, moralistic judgments of people.
That's a wonderful thing to remember in any conflict. We see that regularly when the girls go at each other. Actually, it happened today where they were really upset at one another. And if we stay on that strategy level of, well, she yelled at me first. Well, she shoved me. Well, she said this bad thing. And if we're on that level, there is no desire to find a path to reconciliation and connection. It doesn't have to be a political conflict. It can be any conflict. If there's enough resourcing to be able to say, pause and reflect, let me connect to what I'm feeling and needing. You connect to what you're feeling and needing. Let me share what I'm feeling and needing. You share where you're coming from so that we really hear each other's needs. When we can connect on those levels, if we're willing to take that next step, we can come up with strategies that can work for both of us. The hard part is when we don't directly have a say in the outcome. So even though we can connect on the need level, there's no bearing on the outcome. Right? So let's say you support Trump, I don't support Trump. And we get to the needs level, but I can't impact what Trump is going to decide. That pain stays unresolved. What do you do with that?
Right. Well, whoever's president is not really meeting a need. It's meeting the idea that needs will be met. Right? So, do we have a need for a certain...
He's going to make decisions that I don't agree with.
We're worried that
he has made decisions that some people don't agree,
right. So
that I don't agree with.
Right. So in the past, he's made decisions that somebody might not have agreed with, and we're worried he's going to continue doing that. Now, my guess is that every political, whether it was Obama or Clinton or Biden, has made decisions that you haven't agreed with. Everybody. Now, maybe Trump is going to make more of those, but how did you handle it when one of those presidents made a decision that you didn't agree with?
It depends what space I was in. Sometimes it was in a...
So it's how do we try to get our needs met the best we can? We have our preferred strategies, but we're open to different strategies. So if somebody makes a decision to do X and we want to do Y, okay, so we would love for them to agree to do Y, but if they're not, I'm going to go and figure out another way to get my needs met to the best of my ability. And for whatever amount that I can't meet that need as much as I'd like, that's where I start mourning and grieving.
So, one of the things that comes to mind, and I imagine it's going to be a question for our listeners, is the Republican Party, for example, is going to now play a bigger role in political decisions. And if you're a Democrat or or anybody who's not a Republican is worried that they are not going to be represented by this government. And how do you reconcile that? Because then needs will continue to go unmet for 4 years.
Right. There's going to be some needs that are not met and some needs that are met by this government. Right. There's no way that 100% of your needs are going to go unmet. Right. For example, safety. Right. Some people say, hey, there's some potential for political upset, internationally. Other people say, oh, well, maybe it'll be portray some power. But I think in general, there's a sense that, hey, I'm going to be able to get food. I'm going to, be safe from invasion from other countries. Right. So to me, there's some level of needs met, and then there's some level of unpredictability. And that's scary. And I think as we start to, if we continue to polarize, we get further and further apart. And it's almost like you vote with your dollars at the grocery store. If everybody decided to eat just super healthy food, that's what they would sell. But the more and more polarized we get, the more we get candidates that speak to those extremes. If instead we can all say, we're going to build goodwill, we're going to come back towards the middle, we're going to stop polarizing. And if enough people do that, then that's the candidate that's going to come out, because that's where the masses are. So I think we are creating a problem through our polarization. And as we get more and more afraid, we get more and more polarized and attached to these extremes. But that's what I'm saying to me, with our kids, with each other, because I'm not Republican. I'm saying, over these next 4 years, can I use this as an opportunity to practice?
I love what you said. I love that maybe we can't expect our government to model less polarization, but we as individual human beings can come together to stop the polarization, to find compassion, care, and love, and in that create a big enough population with a loud enough voice that governments now have to take that voice into consideration. And that voice is united,
Exactly.
not polarized.
And the bigger that voice gets, the stronger we get in the middle. And I think these issues, the big, gun laws and abortion laws and border laws, right? Even with the vaccines, right? The people, by asking you what your position is, you are contributing to the problem of polarization. It's complex. So to say either I'm pro this or anti this, you're forcing them to pick one side versus sort of see the complexity in the middle. And I think that's the challenge. And then once you go to that extreme, you start to hate the other side versus saying, you know what? I understand the concerns on this side and I understand the concerns on this side. Let's create a large group of people that can see that middle, the radical middle. And I think that's my question, is how can we support the creation of that in our family so that whoever is elected president, we can see the needs that they're going to try and meet, regardless if we like their strategies. And when we don't like their strategies, can we express our pain without creating any image of that person?
So what are we proposing is kind of the overall tool to do that? We talked a little bit about pausing and reflecting, really connecting to what are my unpleasant feelings trying to tell me? They're trying to tell me that I have unmet needs. What are those needs? really getting curious, not only about where I'm coming from, but where the other person is coming from.
Even if I disagree with their strategy, if I can stay connected to curiosity, I am now contributing to the solution instead of the problem of polarization.
Yes.
And changing the narrative, avoiding labeling people as bad or wrong. Talk about their actions or strategies that you don't agree with, the needs not met, and then get vulnerable about how you feel instead of taking the more familiar way out, which is then diagnosing what's wrong with them or labeling them.
And model that curiosity by really being mindful about how you talk about others, especially around kids. So rather than focusing on the labels, focus on what you like and don't like.
And I love how you did that, right? You would talk about a candidate and say, I'm really concerned about the reactivity. And if somebody's reactive when they get upset and say things, that could stimulate upset in other people. And that reactivity could cause some unpredictability around how people act, right? So I think that you got very clear, and I think our kids really connected to that. And they say, oh yeah, I get nervous about reactivity too, Mom. Then they could connect to that. I think that's really powerful. And then also not shutting them down either. So when they do speak with hate, to get curious, say, can you help me understand why you feel that way? And if you're not clear, can we sort of talk about it and look up? What are some things that person said or done that are worrying you? Right? So you can even see their good intentions with their hate. So don't shame them or shut them down. Again, that curiosity. Curiosity is a real good sign that you're not in reactivity.
Right. And even curiosity around, for some kids, this is meeting a need of acceptance. If all their friends are hating one particular candidate, how are they going to come out and say they don't? Right. So even if it's just meeting a need for acceptance, it's connecting with curiosity. I think that's the bottom line is how do we connect with curiosity over connect with judgment? And if we connect with curiosity, our intention is to connect. If we are going to judge, what it's going to lead to is disconnection.
Right. Because if we judge the other person, we really don't even need the other person to be around. If we have some pipe dream that if we judge them harshly, they're going to all of a sudden say, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm going to change my position. That doesn't ever happen.
No, in fact, a lot of times it causes people to double down, even if they agree with your point. The autonomy and the dignity and the respect and all kinds of other needs that come up, are going to really make you resist changing when somebody is coming at you that harshly.
Right. It's almost like if you imagine driving and somebody cuts you off and you yell, hey, you jerk. And you're hoping that his response will be, oh, I'm so sorry I cut you off. Thank you for getting my attention around that. I'm going to be more careful next time. Has that ever happened? No, exactly. So that's sort of what we're hoping will happen. And it's very unlikely.
It's almost a reflex. If something's coming at you, you're going to defend.
Right. So I really hope, curiosity can just ripple out. So if we can start at home over the next 4 years, regardless of if the person you are excited about in office or not, can we commit to raising kids who think critically and who connect empathetically and who refuse to buy into hate, regardless of what they're hearing?
Wow, that even feels like tender in my heart, imagining. I think of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and how many times has that message been shared? Let's come together. Let's unite. Let's throw out hate and bring in love. The only way out of darkness is the light.
And then they, meaning the people that you previously hated, but now are seeing their good intentions, or at least seeing the needs they're trying to meet, are much more likely to come around and connect in response.
Absolutely. So I think we talked a little bit about, we used heartlines and headlines to talk about our own cheer and tear, which is seeing our own kids falling into kind of groupthink and mourning, the opportunity lost for some critical thinking. But I think the cheer is that when those come about, just like you said, rather than judge them harshly or shut them down, is it's an opportunity to even discuss the issue, which is how important it is to critically think of something and connect it to your internal values. Is this something that you agree with or disagree with? What are the values that are at play here? And how does that affect your opinion of the situation, not the person, right? And I think it was actually beautiful. The discussion that I had with our daughter was, I thought, really impactful. It was a lesson for me, and it was a humbling moment for me because I really pride myself in like, I really value that critical thinking. And, then seeing how quickly it just dissipated in my own children was quite humbling. But at the same time, having the opportunity to reinforce that in a caring and compassionate way, just like you said, it really resonated for her. And then she did get curious. And it was kind of cool to see her formulate, her opinion didn't change much, but there was substance behind her opinion. And where it changed was she went from judging the person to sharing what she likes or dislikes about particular choices. And that was really cool to see. And I think if our young kids can do that, then I know that we can do that too. And vice versa, modeling it for them and allowing the next generation to bring in that light and love is really hopeful for me. And I think that's another thing that I'm connecting to now as far as a cheer and tear. I felt a real sadness when she came down in that judgment, because I think I start feeling hopeless. If we're all hating one another, what hope is there for humanity? And so the cheer is, if they can connect to their compassion and they can disseminate that love and light, I feel hopeful. So just something that I didn't even think of the word hope, but that really
Hits the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a wonderful cheer.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we bring this home? I think one of the first things is having a conversation around it. And I don't, depending on the age of the children, using language that they can understand.
Right. Like I think saying something like, sometimes people say or do things that we don't like, but hating them doesn't help us feel better or make things better. So what if we try to understand what they're feeling or needing instead? Or, hey, can we, talk about our feelings and needs, and then we could try and even understand what's going on in the other person too. And whether that's at home between siblings or between, parents and children, or that's between the kids and their friends, or that's between kids and political candidates, it's all the same connection.
Yeah.
And it's easy to prioritize connection with people with people that you care about. And unfortunately, it's very easy to hate people that you don't see or you just see them on television, especially when they do something you don't like.
Right.
So it's a challenge, but I think that is the challenge. That's the call to action, if we can do that. And then invite them to collaborate. I think turn it into a family challenge. Say, hey, who's interested in helping us, find ways to stay curious and kind, even when we're upset? We can, one of the things we were, talking about doing is creating a jar where everyone can add examples of when they chose understanding over judgment. I mean, how cool would that be to get this jar basically filled with transforming hate? Because, we were going to judge, and instead we connected. And then you see this jar filling up with love and connection.
Yeah, I love that. And modeling is such a key tool. Our kids are constantly watching us, constantly listening to us, and then imitating what they see at home. And so the more that we can share our upsets by connecting to our feelings and needs, I'm feeling really frustrated by what I just heard. You can even share what you heard. And then, what comes up in me is a fear, or I'm really needing some safety and predictability, or I'm needing some more partnership or shared reality. And that can even be like a self-empathy. And once you can share that, you can start getting curious around, well, I wonder what this person is feeling and needing, and I wonder why they chose that strategy. And it might even get down to mourning their strategy, because you can't change it, right?
Especially once the horse is out of the barn, right?
Right.
I mean, when I yell at my daughter to be respectful, I can't change it. I can only mourn that I did it and then try and account for my actions and do it differently in the future. And if someone's hating me, it's going to be that much harder to do it.
Right.
But if they connect to the needs I was trying to meet, and we can start to repair that and do it differently in the future. So our only way to have the hope that you touched upon is by showing up in this way. And that's where I think you can encourage your child to say, hey, I don't like what they did, but I wonder what they were feeling. This helps them build empathy and a healthier way of processing disagreements. And we can do that throughout our community, whether it's at home, friends, or with people you see on TV.
And I love that, because I think the niggle, like the thing that feels unresolved to me is, okay, so I'm connecting to their feelings and needs, and I'm even mourning the strategy that they chose. And now there's nothing I could do about it. It's like, yes, if you yell at your daughter, there's opportunity for repair. But if she's walking down the street and some stranger comes and yells at her and walks away, somebody she'll never see again, she can't impact that outcome, right? However, what you said in the middle of this podcast was so relevant to me, is still, what is our intention? If we go to hate, we're creating more hate and more disconnection and more darkness and more polarization. But if we can find compassion and care, even in moments where we don't like a decision that was made, we are bringing love and light into the world and unity. And the stronger that unity gets, the stronger the voice in that unity gets. And that becomes something that will be represented in our governments when it's powerful enough, right?
Exactly. So when there's enough people, a large enough mass of people that say, don't just talk about it, that we want less hate and polarization, but show up in a way that models less hate and polarization.
Yes.
That's when we're going to get representatives for that large group.
Exactly. And so you might not be able to switch the immediate outcome, but through your behavior, you can shift a longer term outcome.
Right. This is the long game.
Yes.
And when you said that, when somebody walks by, says something, and they're gone, even then, if you choose to hate, you can't impact that person. But what feels better in your body, when you're hating and resenting, or when you're connecting with curiosity? I wonder what was going on, say something, I wonder what was going on in that person when he said that to me, versus, I hate that jerk, I can't believe it.
Right, because what stems out of I hate that jerk, and it inevitably happens, and it happens, I think, to a lot of people, is then you start, that person was this tall, had this color hair, looked like this. So now you start judging people that look like that. So that hatred seeds.
And you start to prep as meeting your need for protection. You start to assume everybody walking by could be a jerk. And you're now more on edge and more likely to create another scenario where there's a disconnecting experience.
Right. So nothing, again, no good can come out of this.
Right. And to me, just notice how you feel when you show up with curiosity instead of hate. It feels better in your body. Yeah, I love that saying, resenting other people is like swallowing poison and waiting for them to die.
I love that. Yes, that's such a great image. Yes, and that's exactly right.
So I love to practice this, create a fire drill. You can just say, hey, who wants to imagine you hear someone say something you don't like, and you could have one kid will tell us, okay, you come up with what the thing is that they're going to say, and then the other person, how do you respond? And then you say, well, what could you say or do instead of reacting with anger? So you start to practice that. Role play ways to respond with curiosity, because it's easier to do it in the role play than it is in the heat of the moment. And then celebrate it. When someone in the family shifts from judgment to understanding, celebrate it. I love the high five. We talk about having a family journal where everybody can just write in a moment if there's a time where they were going to hate and they transformed it into curiosity. You wrote that down. How cool would that be to put that in there and keep track of this book of creating love and connection or transforming hate?
I love that idea. I think we should start it in our own house. Just thinking about it brings a smile to my face because you're encouraging that love and compassion and care. And
so we'll create a transforming hate book?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Done.
So again, just highlighting those things. Talk to your family about it. Explain it in words that they can understand. Model it. Fire drill it. Celebrate it. And remember the long game that we're committing to. And that brings us to our one last thing. And, I mentioned it before, but Martin Luther King had a great quote around this. And he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." So take that home. Take that intention home to you and your kids. And remember that the only way to squash out hate hate and darkness is through love and light. Your experiences and feedback are invaluable to us.
Please email us at parents@webetogether.com with your own cheers and tears, as well as any questions or stories you'd like to share.
Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.